Hello, Rob Lejeune and Daniel Portal here today. Going to solve some 3D problems related to immediate dentures in exocad. How do we design an immediate denture in like 5, maybe 10 minutes? Patient walks in, denture is broken, or you don't have a denture, and instead of starting over with wax rims, how do we take some records and get a try-in or an immediate denture in their mouth as soon as possible so we can verify, bite and those types of things. So, Daniel, thanks for being here.
Yep.
Love to just hear about your workflow and designing an immediate in exocad in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. So that there's a method for us to be able to create a denture rather quickly. We can spend a lot of time making it look extremely aesthetic, or if we need an immediate denture just for getting out of an emergency, then that's the focus of what we're going to be doing today. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and then I'll walk you through the entire process. So we'll start here at the Dental DB. We'll fill out our order form. Typically, when you're designing a denture, you will go and select full denture, and then you will select the manufacturing process so that the software knows exactly what kind of workflow to walk you through. In this case, we are going to select the Mockup restoration type instead. This, to me, is the most versatile. It is my favorite restoration type in the software.
So it's kind of like a study model type approach.
Yeah. So from the Mockup restoration type, you can create Mockup, you can create aesthetic wax-ups, you can create printable wax-up models, you can create obviously a denture like I'm about to show you. And the beautiful thing is you have a lot of freedom to position those teeth wherever you want. And then you can export the position of those teeth. So you can do this design pre-op and then post-op. You can have the teeth already aligned to the preps. And then all you say is, draw, here's my margin, adapt, and the teeth are already there. So you don't have to go through the process of repositioning things all over. So it's one of the main reasons I really like using this. The vast majority of the work that I do is all in X, and this is my go-to for pre-op designs.
All right.
Okay.
Daniel Portal likes the mock-up for pre-op.
Absolutely.
And for dentures.
Fight anybody over that too.
I love it.
So mock-up restoration type, again, because this is just a quick solution, the material is not really going to matter. And this is more like a rule of thumb. If I choose zirconia right now and I decide to print, nothing is lost in the process. Okay, the only time where you may want to be careful is if the type of material that you're utilizing requires you to get really close to minimum thicknesses. So, for example, titanium could be milled a lot thinner than zirconia. And so you want to make sure that you select titanium if that's what you're going for. But for big structures like this, the difference between this and acrylic PMMA or printed material is not going to be that big of a deal. With that being said, if you select the 3D printing option, then the software is going to make certain assumptions so that your workflow is optimized for printing. So things like undercuts, milling tool compensation is what I was looking for. All those will be ignored by default. And so you will be able to get much better detail for printing purposes. Okay. So just to prove a point, I'll select zirconia and I'm going to tell the software virtual gingiva design. However, personally, all these options, because I have access to them through expert mode inside of the software, I tend to not select them. I just leave them blank, and then I can access that tool whenever I want to during the design process. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to hold shift and select the entire arch. This is just to throw some tidbits in here. The number of teeth is really important for us to know because it allows us to make corrections on the fly. So if the doctor tells you 12 units, I usually will design a 14-unit structure because if he changes his mind, it's a lot easier for me to remove teeth than it is to add them after the design has been started. So I always go a little on the safe side, and usually it doesn't go any further than the 14 units.
So always throw in a few extra teeth because easier to remove them versus add them later.
Correct. And then as we go through the workflow, if you want, I can show you how to deal with those little problems.
Well, doctors never change their minds like that.
No, of course not. Yeah. All right, so we'll select a single antagonist, and we'll save the work order. In this particular case, just to make it easier for the demo, I already loaded some scans in here. They are the scans of our model, just so that we see a bit more detail, but the workflow is the same whether you have intraoral scans or a model scan. Um, I am of the opinion that if you are looking to do a well-fitting denture, you should take an impression because you can capture a lot more information
Yeah,
than with
get
an
the
intraoral
borders.
scanner. But you can use the same method with intraoral scans. Right. So we'll load the data in the order the software asks for it, and we'll follow the workflow that the software presents to us. So first thing it wants to do is create some kind of blockout. You will want to rotate this so that you expose all those undercuts as much as possible. There'll be some left, and that'll be just fine. There are some details about the properties here that you can take into consideration if you need to. However, in my personal experience, there's very, very few times where you have to make any changes there. And it has to do with how you want this to be blocked out. I believe that the default settings do give you a good, a very good result. So this is one of the places where I really like designing the dentures here is that tools that I have available to me to position the teeth. I think they're much more you have used them more than the tools that you will use following the denture workflow. Okay. And the other thing is, at least for me, it gives me access to any library that I may have installed on my computer. So not just the ones that exocad offers you, but the ones that other people have created. Um, there are some limitations, of course. So, for example, the actual denture tooth shapes are exclusive to the denture module, but there are denture tooth shapes that are available for this part of the software as well. So, regardless, I'm just going to use a default library that comes with exocad, which is the alternative, just to show the workflow, and I'm gonna do my tooth positioning. So something like this really quickly. I'm not looking for any landmarks. I'm just trying to get my teeth in position so that I can start the, the, the fine tuning of the placement. So some of the tools that I really like here will be the chain mode, and I will go into some detail there. So yeah, one of the tools I really like about this workflow is the access to the chain mode. Now, one of the problems that a lot of people run into, and I get this at least once a day from friends and colleagues and people asking, is what do I do in this situation where my teeth are on a specific occlusal plane, but my model is on a different one? So if you use chain mode to bring this down, what's going to happen is going to start flaring out the teeth
Ooh, yeah.
to the sides, right? And so that becomes a problem. The quick fix, in my opinion, is if you go to the simple tab, which most people don't like, there's a checkbox down here called move all simultaneously. And now it treats the entire arch as a single structure, and I can rotate the entire thing quickly, get it more or less on the same plane, and then just bring it down, and then I'm good to go.
Nice.
So that gets me in the ballpark really quickly without having to really fine tune each individual tooth. After you've done that, you can go back to the chain mode and start fine tuning the placement. So I think last time we did a video, I talked about chain mode, but I believe this is the best tool in all of CAD.
Oh, really? Best
Anybody
tool
can,
in all of CAD.
in all of dental CAD.
That's a bold statement, brother.
And I will die on this hill. Okay. So what it does, it allows you to really do your tooth placement really, really quickly. If you understand the tools, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it's amazing. So,
So Daniel, if
yes,
you
sir.
weren't talking and you were just designing and cranking them out, how fast could you design an immediate heads down, rocking and rolling, start to finish with
Anywhere
everything?
between, assuming the occlusion is not crazy, anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes.
5 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And part of that is because of this tool right here.
Because of chain mode.
Yes, because of chain.
Okay.
So,
Show us.
yeah. So each tooth has this little green dot next to it. It's called an anchor point. At least that's what I call them. And what they allow you to do is to section the arch into different, uh, different sections that you can modify to your liking. So on the initial setup, the way that I see exocad is that it wants you to do the big changes and then work your way down to the details. But the more work you do at the big changes, the less details you're going to have to address. And so we work, at least that is the workflow that I have in my head. So here, we want to get our arch in the general ballpark of where things need to be. So if I unanchor all the teeth, my immediate focus would be the midline. Let's assume, for the sake of the demo, that the midline of the upper matches the lower, or is supposed to match it. Okay, so the lower midline is dead on. I would focus on just on just the centrals, and I would get them right where they should be. Okay, that's all I need to do there. Then I will anchor one of the centrals, and I will play with the opposite side of the arch. So now I'll grab this plate back here, and I can move this section of the arch.
Ooh,
Okay?
nice. That's chain mode in action right there, right?
Correct. And so this allows me to scale things if I need to. I can move them. And so I want to create here my occlusion right where it should be. And then I will anchor that plate. And now I just created a section between that central and that plate. And that allows me to play with the curvature of the arch from this point of view, from this point of view, from this point of view. And I can modify the curvature to match my ridge if necessary, or to match my occlusion, whatever you're looking for. So let's say, again, for the sake of demo, this is precisely what we're looking for.
Is chain mode only available in the Mockup? Is
No.
it available in the denture design module as well?
It is partly available in the denture module.
Okay.
But we will have to make another video to show the pros and cons of each workflow if you want to do that later. So let's say that I get my teeth right in the position where I want. And so now I have to fine tune the other side. So I will anchor the other central, unanchor the previous central, and do the same thing on this side. So I'll look for my occlusion and get it more or less where I want it to be. And then I will anchor that in place, make sure from the occlusal point of view, my arch is following the curvature that it needs to, so on and so forth. And then I'm set. Now, one of the pitfalls here is if the changes are too crazy on one side versus the other, as you can see, now my teeth are not symmetrical.
Yep.
So that could be addressed in a couple of ways. One, the one that I prefer to do is be much more careful when I'm doing my positioning so I don't lose the symmetry, especially on the anteriors. Or the other one is to use the symmetry button so that I can copy one side to the other, and then I have the same size on teeth. Okay. So let's say this is good. Now, if I want to make changes right now, if I was to change the size of number 8 here, then the software is not going to let me to just play with it by itself. I have to go here where it says single, and now I can play with it. Now, I will anchor this tooth so I cannot move it or modify its position, because in chain mode, as I make any changes to a tooth, everything else is willing to shift and to scale to accommodate the change I'm trying to implement. So, for example, mesial distal contact, no matter what I do with this tooth.
Bro.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if I scale things, then everything else will shift in order to accommodate what I'm trying to get to. Okay, so that will be one of the tools that I will use in order to achieve my symmetry, or as close as I can to it.
So let's say you make them just a little bit longer, and then you can just mirror and flip 9 to match number 8.
You can copy either just the interiors or the entire arch from one side to the other.
Amazing.
Yeah. So this is, let's say, the biggest part of that workflow, from big to detail. So this is the biggest. We just want to get things more or less in the ballpark. Once that happens, we then move on to the next set of details, which is making sure that, for example, our contacts are as close as we want to. And that is one of the tools that I don't like about chain mode, is that it always leaves pinpoint contacts. Nobody wants those. Okay?
Yeah.
So once I'm done with chain mode and I got my general position where I want to be, then I will change my workflow into advanced. And here I get to decide whether I want to shift the teeth into one another to broaden those contacts. Or
is there a way to automate that around the arch? Because if you're going to, let's say you're going to mill or print a connected arch of teeth. You want all your contacts to have a little bit of an overlap, so you have a connected bridge, right?
Well, if you were going to do that, then you can just tell the software, create a connector, a natural connector between 8 and 9, and then you can bypass this really quickly.
Gotcha.
But if you're just trying to go for the aesthetic look, then you can either choose to move the teeth into one another to broaden that contact, or you can scale the tooth into one another to broaden the contact, whichever one you find
That's right.
more practical.
And this is an immediate, and it's going to be monolithic. So it's going to be
Right.
one object at the end that we are printing out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I like about this tool is that it allows me to, I like to say, age the teeth as I see necessary. So I can age the anteriors by making them less pointy or pointier. And then the same thing with the posteriors. I can play around with how pointy those customs are.
Wow.
Really quickly. And so it allows me to create the look that I'm after, depending on what it is that I'm looking to
Yeah,
design.
so if you want more flat, lingualized occlusion,
Correct.
that's what you're going for. Yeah.
And so, I will go through around the entire arch and scale things as I see necessary, or bring them into contact one way or another. And then that will be all of it. So let's say that at this point, usually when I'm done with my tooth setup, I will share this with the doctor so that he can gauge what I've done and he can give me his feedback. Say at that point, he says, you know what, let's just keep it to 1 molar. Okay, so the very easy way to fix this, if you go to simple and you scale this tooth way down, you can tuck it in inside the next one. And it's very easy to fix.
You just hide it inside the neighboring tooth.
And when the software combines everything into a single structure, it'll just kind of swallow that little molar up, and it doesn't exist anymore.
So it's like Pac-Man, the Pac-Man trick.
So that would be one way to do it. If, let's say that for some crazy reason, the doctor says, hey, you know what, I want actually 3 molars. Or let's say some crazy setup after you started the design. The software also offers you the option to correct for that. So you can select the tooth in Expert mode, and you can say load custom level tooth. And then you can change that specific tooth for anything else in the arch. So I can throw a central in there. I can throw a first molar, second, third molar. I can throw another canine. So just as a principle, this is the way that you fix a case where the patient has 5 incisors. For example, you would change one of the canines like this. And so just to prove it, I'll change that premolar to a molar.
Wow.
And then it'll work just the same. Okay, so let me turn that back. And then let's move on with the rest of the design. So
wait,
I'll go back.
exocad doesn't have Control Z? You can't just hit the Control Z button to go back?
Once you apply a change, no. And especially because we left that specific workflow.
All right.
Then Control Z doesn't apply anymore.
All right.
Yeah. So we'll let's just say our setup is perfect. We really like this. I know that there's some high points of occlusion here, but just want to get through the rest of the workflow. So we'll go to the next step. The software will ask if you want to save the tooth positions. We'll say yes, and check this box so it doesn't ask you this at the end of every step moving forward. And then it'll want to do some free-forming changes. I tend to not do anything here. I rather do all those free-forming changes at the very end of the process. So I'll move on to the next step. I'm not going to pay attention to the occlusal contacts or any other type of contact right now, so just move next. And so here we come to the gingiva design. That's what exocad calls it. And this is typically used to create kind of hide a very tall pontic. You just create a gingiva around it, and therefore you can make it a little bit more aesthetic, but there's no limit as to how big that virtual gingiva can be. And so here, I'm just going to increase the thickness for printing purposes. So I'm going to leave it at 1.5, and then I'm going to draw the margin that I want, and I will draw it as big as I need the base to be. Okay, so just really quickly here. I'll create this base. And now the software is going to calculate it. Here's one of the things, or one of the places where I believe this workflow is superior. The proposal for the gingiva, or for the base here, is a lot more aesthetic than what happens in the denture monitor. I really like the hourglass or the concave shape that it gives to the sides of it. And so we have our base in place. We go to the next step, and now we get to freeform that base. And here's where we can get creative. So first thing I do is just pull those, let's call them papilla down to close those black triangles. So I'm just going to focus here on the interiors just to show the capabilities here. And then you get to do some festooning. Again, I believe that the tools here are much more, I don't know, the feel for them are a lot more natural than in the denture module. So you can sit here and spend hours making this base look really good. I just have a really quick workflow that gives you very good results. If you were to apply it, takes a little bit of work. If this is just an immediate denture, then you definitely don't want to focus on this, but might as well tackle it while we're here. So I'll do it just for the centrals and the laterals. So this is one of the only places where I use the cylinder tool to add material. And what I like to do is to kind of outline the CEJs of my teeth. And I'm going very rough. I'm not trying to make this look pretty at all.
You'll come back and smooth them later.
Yes. And so I will do this quickly here, and then I will strengthen it up a little bit and make the tool a little bit bigger. And I will do an A shape with a line down the middle just to create the vestiges of the roots here. And again, very rough. Just really quickly like this. And then I'm going to remove material using the point of knife just to individualize those roots. I'm going to make the tool a little bit bigger, and then I'm just going to dig in right in between them. Just enough to create the illusion of, or just to mark the difference between each one of them. And then once you're done with that, I will take the default tool. I will make it very big, the strength about a fourth or a third, somewhere around there. And then you just quickly run over the entire thing, and you get that type of result. And then you can just sit here and polish it up a little bit more and different places, and you can get really good looking results. So after this, if you go to the next step, the software will propose that you add connectors, random exocad factoid. It does not like connectors in gingiva, especially if they intersect. So whenever you have a base or a virtual gingiva like we have here, the software will give you the option of this X that will delete all of the connectors. If you leave them on and they intersect, as it's trying to merge everything together, there's a good possibility the software will spit out an error. So just keep that in mind. I just answer a question like that on the forum. People are asking, how come it's not merging? This is 90% of the time the code.
Got it. Turn the connectors off. Too many calculations.
Yes. And then once you do that, you go to the next step. It'll ask for it again for whatever reason. Then the next step, now the software is going to merge the teeth and the base into a single structure and also adapt the entire surface of it. And we're done. That'll be the end of the result. I know the video's gone pretty long, but this workflow is doable within 7, 8 minutes, 10 minutes steps.
Amazing. So then from here, obviously you got a monolithic try-in, and then just walk me through all of the options that you can modify this from here, for other types of procedures.
Yeah, so it creates a lot of options. So number one, I can now create a two-piece denture. So where I have a single structure of teeth and then the base with the pockets and mesh them together. I create two-piece denture we can put together post-manufacturing. We can use this to create, let's call it an ideal bone reduction guide, for example, to delineate for the doctor how much prosthetic space we need in an all-in-X type situation. I can also create a MUA placement guide from the same structure. And all these are options that are all open to you at this point. And so here's my final product, or almost final product. We'll detail occlusion and little seams like this, but we're pretty much at the end of the process, and this will be our final out.
So then you save this case. It's a single shape monolithic file. Can you reload this case and then go back, or do you start here and then have to edit this case in order to segment the teeth to create a separate base and teeth file.
So the beauty of exocad is, if I save the scene here, as is known in exocad, I can begin my design process from this point forward. It gives me the option, if I was to reload this, to just go back to the previous step where my teeth and the base were separate. And then I can use all this data in however I need, in whatever way I may need to. So I can say isolate the base, export it out. I can isolate the teeth and use some kind of guide, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't have to. So for example, let's say that this is going to be an all in X. I can just go back in expert mode to my gingiva design, and I can just redraw my margin closer to the ridge. And now I will have a much more, let's say, adequate intabular surface for an all-next adaptation, leaving the palate intact or not engaging the palate, for example. And that could be done really quickly by calculating this new process or this new modification. So it really opens the door up for a lot of different options that you can apply here.
That's amazing.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, sir.
For those of you who want to book time with Daniel, rebel3d.com/Daniel. And he's available to help you guys with one-on-one training. Anything you guys need, he's there to help you. One of the world's foremost exocad experts. Thanks for spending time with me, and we'll see you again soon.
Yes, sir.